Brexit paper reveals UK wants close cooperation with EU for court cases. Britain is looking to forge close cooperation with courts in the European Union, EU, after Brexit, its latest negotiating paper reveals. The proposals for civil cases are designed to create a framework for cross-border legal disputes after the UK has left the bloc in March 2019. The rules and regulations will look at which countries' courts will deal with a case, which countries' laws will be used to resolve issues, and how judgments made in one country can be enforced in another. The paper is aimed at creating certainty for families, businesses and individuals when dealing with legal issues with the European Union judicial cooperation is viewed by the government as being essential for both the millions of EU citizens living in the UK as well as British people living on the continent as well as businesses in both areas. The Brexit department said in a briefing note it wanted to build on the existing foundation of cooperation and respect for the rule of law and continue to collaborate at bilateral, regional and multilateral levels. It said, close cooperation in this area isn't just in the interest of the UK citizens living in the EU, it's in the interest of the 3.2 million EU citizens living here in Britain. A UK government source said, with more and more families living across borders, we need to make absolutely sure that if and when problems arise, they can be reassured that cross-border laws will apply to them in a fair and sensible way. The position paper is just one of 5 to be published this week by David Davis' Brexit Department, which set Britain's position on leaving the EU. A paper on future relations with the European Court of Justice is expected shortly, ahead of the third round of formal Brexit talks in Brussels next week. While the EU published its position paper on judicial cooperation in June, it focused on the withdrawal arrangements rather than the future. Michel Barnier, the EU's chief negotiator, has said previously that sufficient progress had to be made on Britain's exit before future relations can be discussed, but the UK has said that the issues of separation from the EU and any future relationship are inextricably linked. UKIP leadership candidate and MEP Jane Collins said there should only be one rule of law in the UK, no ifs, no buts. People voted for Parliament to be sovereign and our courts to make the final decisions. They rejected Brussels and the Luxembourg court. What is difficult about this to understand? Other countries manage to exist without attaching themselves to political blocs. I'm wondering if it's a case of our politicians and civil servants not wanting to fulfill the wishes of the people, in which case UKIP is more relevant than ever. Liberal Democrat Brexit spokesperson Tom Brake said, each Brexit paper the government releases leaves us with more questions than answers. Even Brussels must have had enough of this waffle by now. The Conservatives are admitting the current system has served British citizens well, giving them certainty that the same rules will apply across Europe. So why are ministers hell-bent on ripping up this system and plunging British citizens abroad and EU citizens here into uncertainty? No clarity has been given over which court will resolve disputes and how this will work in practice. The government doesn't even seem to know what it wants to negotiate, so how can it possibly secure a good deal for Britain? Alison McGovern, a Labour MP who is a leading supporter of Open Britain, which opposes a hard Brexit, said, the vagueness and incoherence of the government's proposals prove what an appalling error they committed by making ending the jurisdiction of the ECJ a red line in negotiations to have any kind of relationship with Europe, be it on trade, citizens' rights or security. There will need to be a court in place to resolve disputes. That court will include European judges, will have the power to make decisions that affect the UK, and most likely will shadow the ECJ in the vast majority of cases. The government will end up taking back control from one court and immediately handing it to another, which is hardly what millions of people had in mind when they voted for Brexit. Thanks for watching. Please like, share and don't forget to subscribe English News Hub for new excited videos.